Hey, hi, everyone. Thanks for coming to the September 29th behavioral model meeting. I started the recording. I've gone ahead and presented my screen from last week when I wasn't here. And let me just let a couple more people into the room. I think we're good. All right. So I was hoping we could briefly cover the notes from last week and see if there's anything we need to do with those. Is that okay with you guys?
Sure. Can you zoom in just a little bit?
Yeah, I can try. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Let me stop presenting while I do that. Oh, there we go. Got it. Is this any better?
Much. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I did post the recording for last week here. I picked that up from either Reshma or Jay, who recorded that. And it says here that I was hoping we could go through these, especially the Christina, please add these items to the current list. So, but maybe Marian, could you tell me or catch me up a little bit more on what this part means? What was going on with that item, or if I need to update anything in the task list?
No, I don't think we need to update the task list. I will just raise a pull request roughly by the end of the week. That's it.
Oh, okay. So, thank you. And so we did say, it says here we need overlay IPv6 support, routing, blah, blah, connection tracking. I thought we had this. Let me pull my screen over. Oops. I thought we had IPv6 connection tracking support here and fragment handling. And so I thought we had this in the list. Is there more I need to add here, like overlay support or routing? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like we have an item for IPv6 connection tracking, and then IPv6 routing. I kind of assumed, do we need to put a different work item in for that?
For routing, do you mean, Christina?
Yeah, so here they threw a couple of action items my way, support overlay IPv6 support routing and connections tracking. And I thought, like I said, I thought we had this one and this one for sure. So just wanted to check with you guys. And then also fragment handling. I thought we had these in our list already here, is what I'm saying.
But what kind of routing does it mean in your list? So it's underlay routing or it's overlay routing?
I think in the notes it talked about
if this is the
overlay. Overlay.
It's overlay. Okay.
So I can add a work item for this if we feel we need it.
So the pipeline already supports overlay IPv6 routing.
I thought so. Yeah, I thought so. Okay, well then we'll just I'll just ignore that then. Okay. So, and then we talked about issue 233, or you guys did last week because I wasn't here. And it says we need to add these details to the HLD. So did anyone raise a PR or do a suggestion in the HLD, or is this something I need to do? Let's see if Bud's on the line. Bud is here. Okay. Hey, Bud, did you need me to do this?
I think that could be helpful. I really had two questions with that issue that I raised. One was like the stuff that's discussed here, and the other part of the question was to do with scale, like how many entries have prefixes, when there are multiple prefixes, like for a VNI, like how many prefixes might apply to the same VNI. And there was some stuff that was discussed, and I don't know if it was Prince or someone said they would go away and come back with more detailed scale information.
Okay. And so for the rest of this information, looks like I'll just need to figure out the place to fit it into the HLD and do a PR for that.
Yeah, and that stuff is just basically justification for why the keys are what they are, which is fine.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Sorry, there's still people joining, so I'm kind of going back and forth. Okay, and then
I'll add as they come in, Christina, so you don't have to get distracted.
Oh, okay, all right. And then we talked about 231 here. Oh, okay. So Anton had a test plan that he presented, and it looks like, do we want Marian to review that? So let me pull that one up. And that was is Anton on the call?
No.
Volodymyr Mitnick is on the call, and sorry I joined late.
It's okay. Okay.
I may have a conflict.
Here we go.
Volodymyr Mitnick, can you please fill in for Anton?
Oh, I pulled it up. I've got it here. Go. Signed off by Anton. So go ahead, Volodymyr, or Chris, if you remember exactly what this one's about.
Well, that's kind of a sort of that comment there is almost like tertiary in importance. We probably need to look at the main document and just kind of look at the main test cases. And I think we need to categorize them as to, those three categories Marian suggested. We can write a test, but it fails.
Okay.
We can, but then he had three categories in your minutes. One was there's no implementation. The other is it needs an API.
I have to, sorry, I have a conflict. But
okay.
Marian said last time, Christina, that the test plan that Anton had presented can be used something like an overall plan, so that, the discussion was such that, okay, we need, similar to what we discussed yesterday, a plan of priority list of things and the test plan, and how that things that are missing within the test can be transformed to, the feature list itself. Yeah, sometimes issues, sometimes feature list, right? Because they are all something that is lacking in implementation will become an enhancement and a feature, rather than something is just broken in the existing implementation that is not working. So if it's a larger task, it will become an enhancement. So that's why I had written that the overall test plan was something that we could use as a general plan. That's the part that Marianne had suggested last time. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and if you have a conflict, please feel free, Reshma. We can catch up later.
Yeah, I can carry that torch, Reshma, also, because we're aligned on this.
Okay.
Carry the torch.
Yeah.
I gotta watch out all the metaphors I use.
Yeah. Okay. And
At least
so
I'm not carrying a pitchfork.
Right. So for what we did in the community meeting on Wednesday was we pulled a few items over into the backlog here. These last three in particular, about I believe these are the current items that aren't working right now. So, for example, this one we have a block of a test run here, and so maybe we can talk about this one and what we need to do.
I actually want to suggest before we do that, that we
Okay.
look at the test cases and make sure we have a status for each one. I think that would be back to PR 217, and
Mhm.
I'll send a link to the file so you don't have to hunt around for it. But I think that would be, see if I can find it.
PR 217.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
for example,
I
there's
can grab
a
it.
few different documents there. Like there's an ENI test plan, an overlay test plan, a BNet connection track,
Mhm.
and I think what we need to do, and this is probably maybe we do some of it in this meeting, maybe it's offline, but I think we need to look at all these tests and categorize them according to their status. And those three categories Marian proposed seem really good to
Mhm.
start with. You know, it should work. We can write a test, but the test fails, so that's like a bug.
Mhm.
And then another one is feature hasn't been implemented yet, so it's an enhancement. And the third is we don't even have an API for it. Maybe there's
Mhm.
three categories. We need to categorize the test into those, and then that will result in a bunch of outstanding items to do.
Mhm.
And then we prioritize them so that we have kind of a task list that we know what order to do them in. Does anyone have any other point of view on this? It just seems like a real practical, project management approach. Volodymyr, do we know the status of each of those test cases and, what's stopping us from implementing them?
Yes, so we don't have the status of each of the test cases, of each of the test cases right now. But I think there is a few items like important stuff that block us to test and run the test cases. So Anton did some pull requests, and he specified what attributes are required just to run the test case. We can of course work around, but this is something that would be great to have at the first point, and then we can one by one we can run the test case and see the status of each of them.
Okay, but I would think that even some of the test cases, without getting past that one bug, we can very quickly say we can't even do this because the feature doesn't exist yet, right? We don't need to get the attributes working to learn that. So what I'm suggesting is let's not make this a totally sequential process where we wait for the first issue to be addressed before we understand what the next 20 issues are. Is there a way to get some visibility, the big picture of what needs to be done so we can look at the whole list and prioritize it? Even the obvious.
We can start from the test cases that we know, for example, and then we can prioritize, and later on we can extend it.
Okay. What do you suggest as how we go about that? I mean, you probably don't want to spend this meeting trying to do that item by item, but is there a way that you and Anton can come back to us with at least the most important list that we can see, forward? I don't think you need to go through every single test case and, categorize it extensively, but at least so we have a good look into the next several weeks or months of outstanding items to address. Is there a way that you can do that?
And so do you mean that and go through each of the test case? Because we still feel like implementing them. So because as I understand, you want to have the whole picture, right?
Well, as much as
So
you can be without writing the tests themselves. I mean, there may be some things where right off the bat, well, we can't do connection tracking because we don't have a behavioral model for it. Right? That's an easy one.
yes.
You don't need to write the test to know that we can't do it. So can we?
Yeah, I understand.
So what I'm saying is, can we just kind of get the low hanging fruit as far as status goes, and go through all the test cases and say, this one can't be written, needs a feature. This one we've already tried, it's broken. This one to be determined. That would still be information, right? That we could work with. It's still,
Yeah, but
You're looking, Chris, for example, like, is there a feature BMV2 is missing such that you can't even write the P4 code, let alone write the test?
well, that's even worse than we can't even write the code. We haven't
Yeah.
written the code. Worse
Yeah.
is we can't write the code until tomorrow. So yeah, we need that. In fact, that's a fourth category. The underlying engine isn't capable yet. So yeah, can we just kind of get the broad strokes of this thing, and then some of them will be, we won't know until we try to write the test. That's okay, but at least that's a status, right? Right now,
yeah, but we
have
need to go through each of the test cases, yes, and let's say categorize them if
yeah, triage them on paper, right? Spend a certain amount of time just quickly going through and categorizing the ones that are easy to categorize. And then if they need more work, then we can then decide how to take that next step, right? But if we just go one at a time, I'm starting to write this test today. Oh, I'm stuck, right? We're never going to know what the big picture is and how much effort we have ahead of us. At least we won't all know. Some of us might know. So what I'm asking for is just, go through this test plan, even just sketch out a simple text file. This test can't be done because X, Y, and Z. I think that would be very helpful.
yeah, because I understand, but
Yeah.
it needs to be done offline, not in this meeting, right?
Yeah.
And
I'm just trying to
we
get a
can talk with
process,
Anton.
suggest a process, right? And then ultimately what this working group would look at is, what are things we have to work on that are in the wheelhouse of this work group? Not the testing so much as the implementation, right? And then we'll have a bunch of work items that we can prioritize and debate. But right now what we have is kind of a flat list of some work items, but they're not all tied to test cases. When you start looking at the test cases, we're going to find out there's even more work items than we thought. So I'm just proposing we try to get a big picture so we can then organize the work.
And are you thinking to, do like a tag on, once we do convert it to an issue that we need to look at, then maybe tag it somehow or add a label for like test case or the 4 options Maureen was talking about?
And that could just be the status. I mean, sure, that could be a status, the reason code or something. But, ultimately, I think what would be helpful is we put our project manager's hats on, is we look at this list, we see all the items in priority of what has to be done, and we figure out how we're going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, what I see is a whole bunch of parallel tasks, and they're not necessarily weighted in terms of priority or
Well, we have a priority
chronological
column here. I mean, someone could go through and do or we could do it here, the priority.
Is priority the same as order of working on?
Priority is just 0, 1, 2. And then progress is, are we dependent on something? Are we on track or, paused? We're waiting for resource.
Yeah, just somehow to know what order we need to work on things. And I don't know, priority 0 is low or high?
High. Yeah, P0 is the highest usually.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good idea though, Chris, to try and figure out, the roadmap from, unfortunately this, you can do a different view here. You can move this into boards, like a board view.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of like a Jira. Looks like Atlassian Jira.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, I think, we can get the ball started by just trying to lightly look at that test plan and try to categorize the ones that are obvious.
So the test plan that Anton proposed?
Yeah, and then we get some visibility. And then some tests we won't know until they try to write them, but I'm sure we could look at it and go, these 5 things just can't even be started yet. It would be important to know that.
Okay, so on this one, then the next, I can write the next action item. We need to go through and mark which tests can be run but fail or can't run, that kind of thing.
Yeah, can we categorize them in terms of, you know, if they're blocked?
By the way, maybe it makes sense because you know, the Anton created the test plan and there is a few sections, and this and looks like some of the section have the table, you know,
Yeah.
with the test case descriptions and test case name. So maybe we can just add the column there.
That's exactly what I was going to suggest. We just have a column.
Yeah.
Like, because all these are
so-
living documents. All these documents are living. We can update them anytime.
Something like, oops, crud, that didn't work. Control Z. This Control Z doesn't work. Okay. But then something like, something like this.
Yeah.
And what was the last one? The last one was Andy said the engine doesn't support the test.
Behavioral model it doesn't support it. And the compiler, BMV2 and P4C, you know, which hopefully we can get an update on that too.
Okay. I'll put that in there. Okay.
And I sort of interrupted you on, we were looking at issue 235 when I said, let's step back and look at the big picture. I'm working on that and with Anton and other people at PL Vision. So that's in progress. So
Okay,
needs
so we'll
owner,
put it
you could
progress.
say Chris, yeah, under in progress.
I guess I don't have a in progress. I'll do a on track. Okay. So status is in progress. Got it. Okay. Great. And then we have this other one, which I think this is a great way to do it. We're basically going through and saying, okay, this is what we can't do. Yeah. So Anton is also trying to run the test. I noticed an error. Okay. So yeah, I guess we need some help here. Marian, would you be able to look at this one? Or anyone else volunteer to look at this one? Inbound routing, we don't have any ENI associated with the packet at this stage. The packet will get dropped no matter what we configure.
Marian, do you have an opinion on this one? Seems like it's a bit of a blocker for writing tests.
We don't have ENI associated. Yeah, I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, I think the ENI lookup comes after that table lookup, so it's kind of just needs to be reordered maybe.
I see. Yeah, probably that's the reason.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that the P4 actually compiles, but
Why not? ENI is a metadata, not like a variable in C.
yeah, but it's not assigned, so usually it depends on the compiler, I guess.
So, or put Marian to take a look. Okay,
But this is
Marian.
the issue of the pipeline. I mean, the BMV2 pipeline, or because as I understand, the ENI happens before the routing in the documentation, right?
Bud, maybe can you elaborate?
Yeah, it seems to be the behavioral model issue.
An error on inbound routing create here, and then another issue here where the routing supplied after using directions. We don't have the ENI. So these two things here. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, it sounds like Marian will take a look at the pipeline and
Yeah, I can confirm that this is the issue. ENI lookup is after the inbound routing, which is wrong. Should be moved up.
yeah, it sounds like once
So
that,
can anyone fix this, or is it particular to Marian who has to try and fix this, or how would this work?
I can take it, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Trying to get some help for you here, Marian.
yeah, and the good news is there's already a test case that's kind of sitting there waiting to be, you know, taken to the finish line. So there won't be much work left once it's repaired, I think.
Okay, great. Hmm.
Does the issue specify which test case fails, by the way?
I don't know.
Let me grab that, open it up. Okay. This is basically
I think not exact as test case, it just
it
described the
was
issue.
VNet inbound routing test from PR
I don't
231.
know if that test case is in the repo or if that's a working branch. That
Pull requests, so
it's in the PR, huh? Let's see, is it?
the PR. And there is the inbound test case, so probably it can be used as a reference. I suppose you will not be able to run as is on the BMV2, but you can use just steps as a reference.
Sorry, I'm just reading through this real quick too.
Okay, I understand.
Awesome.
Maybe just a comment with tag Anton, say, do you have a test case handy to be able to try? That would just be flag it to him. He can respond. Right?
Okay.
That would be helpful.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
I had a question for Marian regarding the bulk APIs. Will you be able to do a test case when you do that enhancement, or do you need some help in doing that?
But I thought we already have test case that is not able to run. That's why we are implementing APIs now. Isn't it correct?
I'm not aware of a test case that's waiting for bulk API right now. I think
Yeah,
it's
but that's why this issue came up, because the test cases should be aligned with Sonic implementation as well. And Sonic for large scale tables uses bulk APIs. So I remember Reshma saying that there will be test cases, or maybe there are test cases, I don't remember exactly, that will use bulk APIs. And then the comment was that we cannot run these test cases because bulk APIs are not implemented for BMV2.
Well, eventually that'll be the case. I don't know that that means right now there's a bulk API test case written. I mean, Volodymyr would be the best person to comment, but as I understand, there's a lot of tests being written that aren't necessarily going to run on BMV2 as is anyway. But Volodymyr, do you have a test case that needs bulk APIs today?
Yeah, so at this moment there is no test case that use bulk API because actually on that meeting we understood that we need to write the test case using the bulk API.
Right. So it's a chicken and egg.
We are going to we're going to write the bulk test case with the bulk API, but it's not there. So we still anyway we need at the first the bulk API support just to run the test case.
Yeah. It's gonna be hard just to do a quickie test, even if we don't try to pass traffic, just to verify the API. And it's probably easier to do in PTF than trying to write C++ code for the sci library. That's tedious. So
Yeah, it's we have in the plan for sure.
Yeah.
Anton updated his test plan with this information, so we are planning to add the bulk test case also.
Marian, when you get closer to having the API, reach out or something. Maybe we can just whip up a couple of simple PTF tests that do,
I probably just copy the existing PDF test and switch regular for bulk.
Yeah.
The semantics is the same, it's just numbers.
Great.
Yeah.
That would be great.
And then we have this one. And this is what we were
so
talking
this
about. Yeah, this
Anton
is just what
created. Yeah, Anton created this issue just to add also support for the BMV2 for underlay API. I mean that for the basic stuff is just route configurations. So would be good to have also in BMV2 because we started writing the test cases and anyway we need to configure the underlay routing at the beginning. So we added into the test case, but BMV2 does not support it. So we need to add this functionality also.
Yeah, this is kind of a fundamental issue. The question being, okay, to what extent do we want the BMV2 to run Sonic-like test cases where we're setting up the underlay and the overlay? And to date, I think there's been an unspoken assumption by many that we're only trying to do overlay here. But if we want to run standardized test cases without a lot of exceptions and if statements and workarounds that'll run on hardware or software, then we'd have to enhance the BMV2 model for some amount of underlay. Is that a goal? Is that even practical?
Oh, yeah, I think yes. The problem, not really a problem, but the difference is that, well, let's take the goal first. The goal would be to run the same test cases and achieve the same behavior.
To some extent, yes. I mean, not all
so having said that, the difference would be that underlay implementation for BMV2, we should support all of the APIs that are being called and support them properly. But I think the implementation of them should be as simple as possible to achieve this goal. So really, like, for example, if we look at this list,
so here we just request just basic stuff, really, just
ref,
like,
for example,
scope, neighbor, road.
Well, select egress port. I don't really understand select egress port because what really happens in underlay is the ECMP. So it's up to ECMP how we select egress port.
Well, if you're routing to an ECMP group, yes, can you just route to a single next hop without ECMP for this purpose?
So let's say that the setup is ECMP because that's what really configured or is supposed to be configured in the test. Like making two ports equal. So that simplifies the BMV2 implementation.
So usually the traffic goes and on the one port and received from the same port, unless there is a CMP that send the packet from the different ports, right?
Does it make sense to have ECMP on a 2-port device?
Well, this is ECMP, but that's up to hashing algorithm. How do you pick from one of 2 ports?
Well, but in Dash, does it really make sense to try to do? We're not implementing a sonic switch on a DP. We're implementing, offload processing with some minimal underlay capability. Do we need ECMP? Is that actually a use case?
Yeah, but that's ECMP on the underlay, which doesn't really care which port it egresses. That's my point. Your underlay doesn't care because they are equal. So, okay, let's leave ECMP aside. Let's take some
routing.
Some better example like set proper MAC for egress packet. I agree with that. BMV2 simulator should be able to do that based on what the MAC was set using the underlay SCI API. It's not that difficult to do, but we need to support that.
Yeah, and the same with the neighbor mark port probably.
Yeah, both source destination.
Yes. So this is the basic that at least we need this moment.
And really, this is what underlay API boils down to: setting two MACs and sending the packet, and properly handling API calls, which is on the other side of this problem, which I guess you mentioned yesterday, like return the list of ports, for example, when SCI is asked to, stuff like that.
Yes.
So it's definitely a goal. Just we'll try to make it simple without really some fancy stuff which won't be even visible.
Right. Is there a way to understand the size of this task? And it can be something that people can help on if they wanted to?
Oh, I think the best thing to do would be to like list all the SCI attributes. So there is like, first thing you need to do is to properly handle this SCI API call for that attribute. And second would be to reflect a proper behavior. Yeah, so
go ahead, Marian.
Yeah, so I think what's missing from here is the list of those underlay SCI attributes that are not yet properly handled.
And would they have to?
Yeah, so regarding the list of the attributes, so we have the definition of the underlay SCI attributes that Dash needs to implement. It's in the HLD defined. So probably this list can be used as a reference also, right?
We add it to this issue?
Kind of, but most of them will be really stubs.
Okay. So maybe we can even mark some of the SCI attribute that needs to be implemented at the stubs, because I think that everyone is interested in this.
Yeah, I agree. Right. So we have a list. I guess I agree with that. Just need to mark what's relevant for BMV2 and what we can simply just say, okay, I honor your call, and that's it.
Yeah, return status okay, and ignore it.
Yeah.
Will we have to hand code all these the libsci handlers for all these because they're not tied to P4, or will there be like a auto generating?
I think that's the main difference.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying they should be simple, because they will be manually written.
But there will be some P4 code to handle these. There'll have to be some kind of translation.
For some, like Max, yeah.
Okay. So there's going to be we've talked about the P4 code drives the headers, which, et cetera, but there's going to be certain exceptions here, like underlay, where we're doing a thin underlay just to satisfy testing.
Yeah, exactly, a thin underlay. And if you remember, there are already some like tables that are hidden from SCI generation that really have to be tied to underlay API that already exists.
I just don't think we've ever had this kind of a conversation about to what extent will underlay be in the BMV2.
Yeah. So underlay here, by the way, is a little bit more it's a more comprehensive list to what we need in BMV2, because we don't need almost any of the port attributes, right? We don't expect to set MTU on the port.
Or speed or anything. Right.
Yeah, or speed.
Right. So it seems
but we can return okay. Like return status success if Sonic will require that. If test is even more simple and it doesn't configure phi, and we don't even need to do that. So probably like I can outline the first ones that really affect the packet processing, and the next we'll need to revisit that after some time to see if tests need something else or not.
Do you think that table that we just saw a minute ago, the Swiss light, can we add a column to that says supported in BMV2, just so we have some place to?
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't want to copy it somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, we have been treating BMV2 as kind of a, I don't know. It hasn't been like documented the same way that we've been documenting the final production implementation, and maybe it's time to catch up on that and just get it out there, since we're basing so many of our workflows on that.
Sorry, I'm trying to remember where I was in the here.
What really would be great also to have another column here, like if there is some of the attributes that expected to be as just a stub, so also would be great to mark this attribute as a stub.
Even for a production DPU? Or are you talking about
Yeah.
No,
BMV2?
BMV2. It's a BMV2 column.
Yeah, BMV2.
okay.
BMV2, BMV2, and then have a few ways to describe it, right? Need.
Yeah, because as I said, there is a difference between BMV2 and production. Production needs to support PHY, needs to support a lot.
Yeah, so we just have a BMV2 column and have some word there that says, must support stub only, whatever, right?
Yeah.
That would be real helpful. Because some of the stuff takes some.
Is this what we're asking for here?
Yeah, that seems like a good enough start. Yeah.
Okay, because then I can create a PR and send it over to Prince, because Prince wrote this.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he has a strong feeling about the BMV2 implications or not. Is he likely to weigh in on BMV2 aspects like we're discussing here, or is that something more the working group knows about?
Well, you guys are asking for a new column in a published Sonic HLD, is what I'm understanding.
Yeah, I guess
we don't want to keep copying the list over and over.
Yeah, someone else could do a PR against it, right? I don't know if Prince has to. He probably wants to review it and approve it, but Marian, for example, could do a PR on it. Or
well, I'm kind of doing it right now, right? So I could just say,
yeah,
I could do it myself here.
Oh, the note, yeah, but someone can actually just fill it out with the answers too.
Oh,
I'm saying someone could write a PR, actually just implement this.
Yeah, I can do that.
I don't think we need this here, right?
Okay, okay.
Maybe we just do an issue. Let's just file an issue, add BMV2 column to the Swiss light table. And then it's a work item.
Okay.
And then we can all review the PR, including Sunny. This is good though, because the rubber's starting to meet the road. We've got enough code and test infrastructure where we're starting to, have to nail this stuff down. It's good.
Yeah, and once we have this in BMV2, even as a stub, so maybe some basic routing as we discussed, so then probably we can also work on the test cases that we published.
Yeah.
And also we will fix them accordingly what is expected.
No, to me, this is a lot of progress, because there's just a lot of unspoken assumptions from all sides on this topic, and now we're getting it out in writing. That's good.
So we're going to file an issue or a PR then, and this is the section that it would go into.
Yeah.
Okay, and here's the link to it. So, okay.
Actually, this is the issue, I guess.
Well, I guess so.
Yeah.
Number 236. Yeah. So.
Good.
Okay.
Very good.
Awesome. That's what I had. Go back to the notes here. So we had added a release column to, what area of that was that? We had added a release column in our Wednesday call to, I don't remember which view it was, this view or something.
I think you added priority, right? Was that what you added?
No, I had added release. I just have to figure out which view it was in. And so someone was going to go in and fill out the, oh, maybe it didn't save it, but someone was going to fill out, you know, which of these go into which release. We still want to plan on doing that. Oh, here it is, release version here. You guys want to talk about that for a second?
I can give you, one point of view, and haven't heard a lot of response yet from the idea. I was thinking, if we use a typical semantic versioning, A.B.C, then let's say that we're working right now on 0.1.0, right? That would be VNet out. And if there's a new feature like we get VNet in working, we could call that 0.2. And there's another feature we call 0.3. We just increment that middle field. And if we have a patch to one of those, we increment the third digit, 0.1.1 would be affixed to 0.1.0. That's just normal software branching and tagging. That could be one way to name these things. Because what I'm thinking is just like a regular release process. Let's say we get a feature working and the test pass and we all say, yay, this works, it's good, ship it, so to speak. We tag it. We tag it 0.1.0 and someone can check that out anytime and reproduce everything at that state. And we could even be working on parallel tag branches sometimes, but at least we'll have some numbering scheme to describe them. What we have right now is just commit references changing day by day that don't mean anything. And so I just wanted to throw that out there for the community. Should we have some kind of a convention like that now that we're getting in some maturity and stability? Does anyone like or dislike that idea?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So if we say that VNet out, we're at 0.1.0. I don't know if we pass all the VNet out tests as we'd like them to, but let's say we do. We can at some point tag this and declare it a tag, a release, so to speak. What will we want for the next one? VNet in, fixed. And then the one after that might be ACLs. I'm just thinking we need to have these kind of increments describing something. And we may get up to release 0.372.0. That's fine. At least we know what it means, right? We can keep a table, just a simple table saying release contents, right? We have a release notes.
So what's needed for that effectively in the repository? We need to start adding tags, plus we need to keep release notes.
Yeah, just a simple README release notes would be fine in the tag, right?
Okay.
At this point, we're not shipping it to anybody, but we can just have at the very top level of the repo release notes. I mean, it'd be so simple, right? 2 columns.
Okay, so I can start doing that.
And the release notes, it could actually function almost as a roadmap too. We could have unreleased versions that are sort of further down on the table with our goal, right? Be a simple planning tool. And we can move it around.
RCs or release candidates, in other words.
Yeah. Release
Okay.
candidate. Something like that. Just some way to easily describe where we're at. I think once we do that, we'll just say, oh, I'm working on 0.2. Okay, I know what that is. I can look it up. I need to fix a bug on 0.2. I'm working on 0.2.1. And then we merge it into the main, right? So I think we just start treating it like a real software product. Everyone kind of knows the ropes, right? There's pretty much industry has one way of doing these things now.
So that's what we're going to do then. We're going to use this column here and people are going to start filling this out. Would we assume that every one of these items is needed for the first release?
I doubt that. That's one of the points of this, is to sort of get a rough chronological order of things, right? And some may be, release candidate might be unknown, right? To TBD.
Okay. So who's going to run through and fill these out then?
Again, can you
Maybe we
repeat?
can do it. We can do it in the next meeting. Do you guys want to go through these one by one together in the next meeting and start filling them out, or do we want to do it offline outside of the meeting?
For the
Like for-
completed or for the items in progress?
It's like I'm open. I mean, we could just pick. I don't personally know which one of these is needed for the first release. I'm happy to help update if I knew. Like for example, if we just pick one, I mean, I would assume deliver non-standard BMV2 for stateful traffic. That would be in the first release, yeah?
No, I don't think that stuff like stateful traffic comes in the next release.
Oh no,
Okay.
that's way out there. That's yeah.
Okay. So yeah, just help going through and picking which of these would go where. I'm happy to help with it if anyone, knows.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how that is supposed to work, Chris. How can we decide ahead of time? Like, I understand the concept of release candidates. Like, there is a set of features that are work in progress or should be done soon that people want to contribute. They go to they are part of the release candidate, and as soon as everything is stable, we take them into the next release. But planning more than one release ahead of time, I didn't see open source communities do that.
Okay, well then we can just have a priority, right? And then we can assign them to release candidates as we get closer.
Yeah, something like that.
Even a roadmap that's just a sorted list of things in the rough order, just text, right? One line at a time. We want to do things in roughly this order would help.
Yeah, so priorities, sure, we can have them.
Okay, so do we want to try and fill these out in the next meeting then? Fill out the priority for each of these? Or do this outside of the meeting? Maybe to keep us all on the same page, maybe we should just take a swing at it in the next meeting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I know we've spent most of this meeting talking about process, and I'm sorry for that because we didn't talk about anything fun like P4 code. It seemed like it's a worthwhile effort right now.
Okay, well, we can talk about P4 code. Okay. Well, yeah, we can stop doing this. Anything else then, guys, on the call? Did you want to talk about the code or the APIs or anything like that?
Yeah, I got one or two things on the ACL and the SI APIs. SI API in general, maybe I should open an issue for it. I noticed that the set entry attributes, whether it's for direction, ACL, and whatnot, which I believe the set would be an update, really. Doesn't have the attribute count. So sounds to be a generation thing if the set is like an update. Like for direction, you have a create, a remove, a set, and a get. The set for me is an update and should have the attribute count in there, but it's missing.
No, that's actually following the site conventions that does not allow setting more than one attribute at a time.
You're talking
That's
about
true.
bulk API, and you're not going to allow updates more than one at a time. I mean, it's fine, but it's
that's how SI is defined. We never updated more than one attribute at a time. We can have bulk APIs for updating more than one entry. That's true, but not more than one attribute of a single entry or object at a time.
Okay, fair.
Also, we don't, Marian, is it true? We don't have set or get accessors in the libsci for BMV2, correct?
Yeah, that's true because even Sonic doesn't use them yet. And I don't think there is any plan to use any getters. But that's just Sonic specific because it keeps a shadow of all of the state inside in its own memory. So if it wants to simply check something, it just looks at the data structures in org agent. It doesn't do sci get. But then with the set attribute, there will be, I would say, a limited number of attributes that will actually need to support set. For now, there is none.
Okay. So that's a work item for BMV2 is set code.
Do we need to put a work item in here?
I think so, yeah.
Okay,
Libsci
right.
set accessor.
Like that?
Set. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, and the more ACL specific questions here. So you create a group, you bundle a bunch of rules in there with priorities. Can two rules have the same priority? That's my first question. The second would be, well, I guess let's start with that question.
No.
Okay. The second question is, when they get pushed, it's one rule at a time. Are they in order of high priority, like priority 0, down to higher priority, lower priority?
You mean in which order they are programmed, or which one takes precedence?
No. The precedence I understand. And well, I mean, for me, priority 0 is higher priority.
Yeah.
The lower priority, the highest.
Yeah.
If you look at the TCAM, that's kind of the line number of sort, right? So
exactly. Offset, yeah.
So when you push like 500 rules down, it's like one rule at a time until we get the bulk API. But can we make an assumption about, rule 0 is priority 0 is sent first, then priority 1, and so on?
I don't think so.
I understand, but actually the answer is not. I would say order doesn't matter in which you program them, even if you have bulk or not, because the thing is that the whole group will be attached to the ENI, or the whole group will become active and participate in the pipeline only after we programmed all the rules. So the order of operations is program create group, create rules in that group, like program all the rules, and only after rules programming is finished, there is a set attribute, which is, by the way, one of the examples where we will need to support set attribute in the future, which will attach that group to ENI.
Right. I understand that. It's just that, when you send a bunch of rules down, somehow we need to keep track of those and whatnot. So it's by priority, for instance. So it helps out the sorting, to optimize the sorting and the storing while, to build the database, I suppose.
Yeah, Vincent, as someone who might want to write a test case, I would say I will try to break your implementation by trying all kinds of things regarding order. That's sort of I don't mean to sound adversarial, but you have to act as if someone will try to prove that you can work any way we send it, right?
Yeah, and I do. It's just a matter of time of, trying to sort out things in a better, more efficiently. It's no more than that.
Yeah. That's the hard part about writing these backends, right? And a lot of implementations aren't even TCAM based; they're RAM based. So there's a whole lot of transformations going on dynamically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the hardest things.
Quick question: are you using P4 runtime API for BMV2 backend? Is that what you're talking about, or you're talking about some other hardware backend?
Who, me? Just another one. Not P4 necessary, but it could be TKM, could be software, could be anything really. And you still have the how do you store the database the most efficiently in the most efficient way, right? That's all.
Now, someone writing the SDN code to program these things might want to write them in the most friendly way, right?
Sure.
Because we want the network, we want the whole data center to work efficiently, but the back end has to handle anything in any order.
Right, it's fair.
Yeah.
ACL modification when they're already applied to an ELI, is that allowed? I don't see why not, but sometime, like I worked on Cisco product before where sometime if it's too big of a change, you actually need to pull the ACL, then modify, then reassign it.
I think this kind of flow is expected to be done in Sonic. So we don't really want to do ACL modification in place. We want to have it atomic. So what will happen is that any modification, for any kind of modification, what controller will do is create another group with the, let's say, table that it wants to see, and then switch from the old group to the new group. So that's expected scenario for now.
Okay. And what would be, since we're talking about changing groups on the port, what would be the reference for, I'm removing the ACL from that ENI? Is there a dedicated group value? Because there's no, it's an attribute. There's no remove that attribute, right? Do we know that?
There is. You can, so for example, if you look at the ENI attributes, there is, let's say, V4 ACL stage 1 inbound group.
Right.
So if you want to detach that group from ENI, what you do is you set this attribute to null.
Well, so that, yeah, that's what I'm asking is what would be the attribute value that says, well, there's no more binding? I wasn't sure.
Yeah. So psi null object ID, there is a dedicated value to like remove an object binding from another object.
Okay, cool. It's called null something, or I'll look in the code.
Psi null object ID. So if you look in psi headers, it is specified in the comments as a default value, by the way.
Okay,
There
cool.
is a doxygen comments, and psi null object ID value is a default value.
Cool, I'll look for it. Thank you. That's all I had. Thanks. Appreciate it.
We're way over on time. Anyone else have something for today?
Well, I have pull requests, but it will take too much time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm saying it will take too much time. I won't do it this week.
Okay, all right. We'll talk about it next week then. All right, thanks everybody. I hope you have a good day.
Yeah. Good set of talks. Thanks.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. And we'll talk next week. We'll try and go through and prioritize items next week. We'll go through Maureen's PR next week if he has it. Thanks everybody, and I'll post the recording later today.
All right.